Hello guys, we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if 7-year-old Naruto discovered the 4th Hokage's secret scroll part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. 7 years old Naruto Uzumaki was grumbling to himself while rifling through the stuff in the storage room of the Hokage tower. Really? Why did his Ji-san have to punish him for a harmless, little prank? Given it was the 7th this month and he got off the other times, he could admit to himself that he might have deserved it a little bit. However, clearing up the storage room was much too cruel, at least in Naruto's humble opinion. And anyway, what was he supposed to do all day? It was still over half a year until he could enroll at the Shinobi Academy. Naruto is an orphan. Both his parents perished in the Kyuubi attack 7 years ago, and for some reason people didn't like him. He didn't remember much about his first 6 years spent in one of Konoha's orphanages. After the incident on his 6th birthday, his Ji-san gave him an apartment and a stipend to live on. At first, he had been ecstatic. After all, the matron never really allowed him to go into the village. Reality caught up with him all too soon. Cleaning and cooking all on his own was not fun at all. Worse yet, the children at the various parks didn't play with him, on the insistence of their parents, and the only adults that treated him nice, aside from a few shinobi, were the owner of a ramen stand and his daughter. The one bright spot was Kodo-chan, who came by once in a while to spend some time with him and even brought along fresh groceries and her very own homemade cooking. All this led to his current predicament. Being a bored 7-year-old, with too much energy, he started pranking people. His targets were mostly people who treated him badly, i.e. shop owners that overcharged him or were generally meanies. Naruto had tried to get into the library a few times, since reading was one of the few pastimes that didn't require friends. However, the librarian didn't like him either and had chased him out, hence his desire to prank him. It was only thanks to his Ji-san that he was even able to read, and some anonymous benefactor that left behind books in his apartment. Back to Naruto, he was currently trying to rearrange a few scrolls containing old academy texts in a rack. Being only 3 feet 11 inches tall, he used a small chair to reach the higher compartments of said rack. When he was almost finished with his task and tried to put the last scroll on the rack, he leant forwards and his right foot slipped from the edge of the chair. Stumbling right into the rack, he was lucky that it didn't topple over. However, as he grabbed onto the next best thing, that being the bottom of a compartment, the thin wood panel broke and Naruto fell to the ground in a heap. Having his unlucky day, a heavy wooden box that was being stored in the broken compartment came flying and hit him right on the head. Naruto rubbed the forming bump on his head, glaring at the, according to him, stupid box. His annoyance came to a halt when he saw the kanji for 4 in big yellow scripture on top of the box. Naruto's face changed to a big smile. This box must belong to the Yondaime, he thought excitedly. Naruto had read all about Konoha's Hokage and his Ji-san had told him a few stories about them, since he had known all of them. For Naruto, the 4th Hokage was quite the hero, having saved the village multiple times. Naruto picked up the heavy box, but scratched his thumb open on a splitter of the slightly damaged box. He suckled on it to nurse the pain and then picked up the box again to put it back on the rack. As soon as his bloody thumb touched the box, the yellow letter started to glow, and with a quiet click, the cover of the box lifted itself a little. Naruto froze for a moment, but then his curiosity got the better of him. Glancing around the storage room, he reassured himself that he was still alone and lifted the cover off completely. The first thing he noticed was a 3-pronged kunai with weird markings on the hilt. Naruto picked up the kunai and marveled at the weapon once wielded by a Hokage. Seeing multiple scrolls, he picked up the first and unrolled it. Birth certificate. Birth in the village hidden in the leaves, Konohagakure no Sato, registered by Sandaime Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi. Child. Date of birth. 10. October 1289. Name: Naruto Namikaze. Sex: male. Parents: father. Name and surname: Minato Namikaze. Profession or occupation: Yondaime Hokage. Age: 21. Birthplace: Kanahagakure no Sato. Mother. Name and surname: Kushina Uzumaki. Profession or occupation: elite jonin. Age: 21. Birthplace: Uzushiogakure no Sato. Witness. Name and surname: Kakashi Hataki. Profession or occupation: shinobi of Kanahagakure no Sato. Naruto stared wide-eyed at the document in his hands. Uzumaki Kushina. He asked himself. His eyes darted around the room, making certain that he was still alone. He threw the scroll back into the box, placed the lid on it, picked it up and rushed out of the Hokage tower towards his apartment. XXX. Back in his apartment, Naruto sat on his bed, the box on his lap but unable to open it again. Looking at it with a confused expression, he noticed the tiny red smear on the lid and remembered his injury. Unfortunately, his thumb had already healed, so he bit down on it until the skin broke and smeared a little blood over the box again. This time, the lid came off without resistance. He grabbed the birth certificate again, and just stared at it. He couldn't believe what he was reading. Why had nobody told him about his parents? His Ji-san had to know this. His signature and the Hokage's stamp was on the document. Shoving his questions back for later, he grabbed the next scroll and opened it. Naruto. I don't know where to begin, to be honest. When you read this, it means that Hiruzen has told you about your lineage. My original was just stabbed through the chest while sealing the QB and created me, a shadow clone, to write this letter for you. However, since my original is probably dead by now and my chakra is very limited, I'll act as original for the time being. My name is Minato Namikaze, the Yondaime Hokage. I don't know what Hiruzen told you about the night the QB attacked, so I'll write a little about that, in order for you to understand my actions. Your mother was the second Jinchuriki of the QB and the most beautiful woman I have ever known. Unfortunately, we were attacked by a masked man with the Sharingan the night you were born, a man who wanted to set the QB free. Long story short, we were taken by surprise and the QB was ripped from your mother. A Jinchuriki can't survive the extraction of its prisoner, and even the fabled Uzumaki longevity wouldn't have been able to save your mother. I am uncertain whether Hiruzen has told you about your burden or not. Therefore, I'll give you some information first. You must understand that Biju, such as the QB no Yoko, can't die. They're giant masses of chakra, given conscience. The first Hokage Hashirama Senju subdued the QB during his fight with Madara Uchiha and with the help of his wife Mito Uzumaki, sealed it away. Mito was the Jinchuriki of the QB before your mother. The weaker Biju can be sealed in objects for a few years before they break out, the stronger, however, need human jailers. Due to political reasons, Hashirama captured the other 8 Biju and gifted them to the various villages as a sign of goodwill and peace. It obviously didn't work that well. Biju are traditionally sealed in babies or young children, although it is not necessary, as the example of Mito shows. When the QB broke loose and rampaged through Konoha, we had to reseal him. As the Hokage, I couldn't ask someone else to sacrifice their baby if I myself wasn't able to do so. There are only so many people I would ever trust to hold the power of a Biju, and I can say without doubt that you're one of them. The seal I used, however, is special. Unlike other Jinchuriki who have like an on-off switch to their Biju's chakra, your seal allows a constant trickle of the QB's chakra into your body. It is one of the most advanced seals ever created, if I may say so myself. The man that attacked us wanted to destroy Konoha and I was only able to rebuff him, so I knew that one day the village would need the QB's power to survive, and that is another reason why we chose you. Your mother and I trusted you with this burden because we believe that one day you will be able to control the QB and protect the village we loved. There's no one we would trust more than you, for you are our son, Naruto, and we love you more than anything in the world. Never forget that you are the QB's jailer and not the demon himself. I told Hiruzen that you should be viewed as a hero for what you have sacrificed. I am rambling by now, I guess my chakra is running low, so I'll try to finish this. Due to the special seal, your body should become more acclimated to the Kyuubi's chakra. Your mother had always trouble using it, since it hurt her body. It will also give you bigger chakra reserves. It is a shame that I won't be able to teach you anything Sochi. However, one piece of advice, you need to do many chakra control exercises, to use your chakra efficiently. It's embarrassing that my only words to my son are about history and technicalities, but I'm certain that your mother will have all the mushy stuff covered. I will seal this letter and your mother's in a box together with some other things. The documents to our bank accounts and our home should be in there. Our home has similar protections to this box, so only you will be able to access it. The house is very secluded, since I needed a lot of space to work on new jutsu and train with my summons. When your heritage is revealed, you could also live in the Senju compound. Tsunade has left the village a few years ago, and isn't even aware of Kushina's pregnancy, since we weren't able to contact her. I can feel my last chakra leaving this body. I want you to know that, whatever you do, your mother and I will be proud of you. Train hard, son, I know that you will become great one day. I hope that Hiruzen, Jiraiya and Kakashi took good care of you. With all my love, Minato Namikaze, Yondaime Hokage. Naruto's hands trembled while tears streamed down his face. He didn't understand everything his father, or rather his father's clone, had written. Apparently, he had the Kyuubi sealed inside of him, however that worked, and it was the reason the villagers resented him. Naruto wasn't sure what to feel about this, so he rummaged around in the box, looking for the letter his mother had written. Sochi. First, I love you so much. I loved you from the moment I found out that I was pregnant. I'm so sorry that your father and I won't be there for you growing up. I'm sure your father rambled on about the amazing seal he used for the Kyuubi and how you're going to be a great shinobi. However, know that whether you become a shinobi or not, we will be proud of you. There are a few things that I need to tell you. As you might know, I was born in Uzushiogakure, the village hidden by whirling tides. Uzushio is rather special, in the sense that its population was made up almost completely by the Uzumaki clan. It is my hope that you can bring our clan back to greatness. You see, a few years after I left Uzushio to live in Konoha, Uzushio was attacked and our clan almost completely wiped out. In my lifetime, I tried to find survivors but was without luck. The Uzumaki were a proud clan and famous for their skill in Kenjutsu and Fuinjutsu. We were closely allied with Konoha, due to the marriage between Hashirama and my grandmother Mito Uzumaki. So, if you decide to become a shinobi, you might want to look into those two ninja arts. There are many scrolls on the history and jutsu of the Uzumaki in our home, so if you are interested, it would be the best place to start. I'm sure that your father rambled about the night we both died. Is it weird to write about my original's impending death? Closing parenthesis. However, you must be quite angry at us, due to our actions and the fact that your inheritance and the knowledge about your parents was kept from you. Your father's clone informed Hiruzen about everything and asked him to keep you safe and your lineage hidden until you are ready to defend yourself. Both me and your father made many enemies in our life. Iwa in particular would love nothing more than to remove the name Namikaze from this world. For all this, I want to apologize and hope that you can forgive us. I feel my end coming, so here's some last advice. Naruto, don't be picky, eat lots and grow strong. Make sure that you bathe every day and stay warm. Also, don't stay up late, you need lots of sleep. And make friends. You don't need a lot of friends, just a few. Ones you can really trust. I wasn't very good at it, but keep up with your studies and practice your ninjutsu hard. Remember that everyone has strengths and weaknesses, so don't get too depressed if you can't do something well. Respect your teachers and upperclassmen at the academy. Oh, and this is important, it's about the 3 prohibitions for a shinobi. Be extra careful about lending and borrowing money. Put your mission wages into your savings account. No alcohol until you're 20. Too much can ruin your health, so drink in moderation. Another prohibition is women. I'm a woman, so I don't know too much about this, but all you need to remember is that this world is made up of men and women, so it's only natural to take an interest in girls. But just don't get hooked on bad women. Find someone just like me. Speaking of the three prohibitions, be wary of Jiraiya. You know Naruto, from now on, you're going to face lots of pain and hardship. Be true to yourself. Have a dream and have the confidence to make that dream come true. There's so much, oh, so much more that I want to pass on to you. I wish I could stay with you longer. I love you. Kushina Namikaze. XXX. Hiruzen Sarutobi, Sandaime Hokage of Konohagakure no Sato sat in his office gazing into his crystal ball with a frown on his face. He could only hope that he did the right thing by leading Naruto to his inheritance. This last year he had been forced to watch a young boy turn from an inquisitive, curious and exceedingly bright child into a parody of itself. All due to the behavior of the very people he had served for close to 5 decades, not to mention the boy's own service, although unknown to him until now. Hiruzen could tell himself all day that his actions were for the good of Naruto, but at the end of the day he was the Hokage and he could not allow an asset like Naruto wither away. If certain people got wind of what he did, he might get into trouble. Not that anyone could touch him, but it would be quite annoying having to explain himself. He decided to keep an eye on Naruto, at least for next few days, and make sure that he didn't shout S-class secrets from the Hokage monument. XXX. 12. December 1296. Naruto woke with a start. He had cried himself to sleep the previous night, clutching his parents' letters to his chest. Naruto wasn't sure what he should feel. On one hand, his parents were the reason that villagers didn't like him and he couldn't make friends. Due to said treatment, however, Naruto grew up faster than usual, and understood that what his father did was necessary. There were only two things he was certain of at the moment. 1. He was going to find the masked man and make him pay. 2. He wanted to visit his parents' house, the home he should have grown up in. After a delicious cup of instant ramen, he made his way to the Hokage monument. According to the scroll his parents left him, their house was located near a small lake behind the monument. XXX. The first thing Naruto noticed after entering the house was the dust everywhere. Making his way through the different rooms, he explored what should have been his childhood home. Tears sprang to his eyes on multiple occasions, the first time he saw a photograph of both his father and mother, the room they had prepared for him, or how there were still dishes in the kitchen sink, as if someone would come back at any moment to wash them. The two-story house had a kitchen, dining room, living room and a small bath on the first floor. On the second floor, there were 3 bedrooms, another bath and the library, connected to an office. After having explored the house for almost an hour, Naruto spent the rest of the morning in the library. The first thing he did was looking for the scrolls his mother had mentioned. He wanted to know more about his family, the only thing he ever craved for more than ramen. When lunchtime rolled around, Naruto ignored the rambling of his stomach and decided that he would have an extra-large dinner instead. Having read about the Uzumakis for 3 hours already, he decided that he should check what else there was to find. 5 hours later Naruto was amazed by what he found. Apparently, his parents had put a lot of work into amassing knowledge. There were scrolls on every ninja art Naruto had ever heard about and then some. From history to science, even his father's old academy books and notes were stored away. The only thing missing were scrolls on actual jutsu. The whole collection was more about general chakra knowledge and jutsu theory. Over the past 5 hours Naruto also tried to think about what his parents wrote and made some decisions. First, he wouldn't tell his Ji-san that he knew about his parents. He wondered when the Sandaime would deem him worthy of that knowledge. Second, he would heed both his father's and mother's advice. When he had looked into his father's old academy books, he couldn't stop himself from reading a little. After all, he would soon be learning this stuff anyway. Naruto had already read a book about chakra, and together with his father's notes, it was much easier to understand. There were a few words that were still too big for him. Luckily, his Gigi had gifted him with some boring book that explained all the words that he had ever seen. Naruto promised himself to look into it back at his apartment. He would do everything he could to become as strong as his father, even if it meant reading about not so interesting stuff, like geography. Thinking about his father, he thought about his dream of becoming Hokage. While it would be awesome for the whole village to acknowledge him, there was a lot of stuff involved that Naruto didn't like. His father had made some notes about his days in office, and there was very little fighting going on, which was just boring. Why should he train to become the strongest only to sit behind a desk all day long? Naruto realized, in a rare moment of introspection, that what he really wanted from being Hokage was the respect and love that came along with it. Maybe he could ask his Gigi or Kodo-chan how to do that without all the boring stuff. Besides, he had heard the Sandaime complain about his paperwork often, and it didn't sound fun at all. Naruto also wanted to learn Fuinjutsu. On the one hand, it was interesting. Like, a few symbols holding a gigantic mass of chakra at bay. How's that not awesome? On the other, it was what made the Uzumaki great and respected, and his mother had told him to bring the Uzumaki clan back to greatness. His decisions made he picked up his father's old academy stuff and a beginner's book on Fuinjutsu. Coming back to this house every day would be suspicious. Just aside from the academy books, he also found a book titled Ninja, a How-To, by T.S. That sounded exactly like something he could use. Quite happy with his discovery, he found himself a bag, put his books in it, and left the house. XXX. 19. December 1296. 1 week later, we find our favorite blonde storming into the Hokage's office, permission to do so notwithstanding. Gigi, I need your help, the boy exclaimed loudly. Hiruzen Sarutobi, Sandaime Hokage, hero of many battles and wars, Kami no Shinobi, and many other titles, looked up from a small orange book and cursed. Just when he was taking a short break from the arduous paperwork, he had to be interrupted. When he noticed who it was interrupting him, however, he started to smile. Hello Naruto-kun. Tell me, what can I help you with? Naruto started to fidget under to Hokage's gaze. He hadn't planned what to say exactly to his Ji-san, in order not to arouse suspicion. Well, you see Gigi. I want to become a shinobi, and I heard that shinobis need to eat healthy food and such, but I have a problem. The merchants only sell me bad things, and it's like super expensive. Kodo-chan usually brings by stuff, but according to this book I'm reading, I need to eat much more to build muscles. Kodo-chan told me those masked guys running around the village are super awesome ninja and everyone respects them, and then she said if I wanted to join them, I have to eat all the veggies and stuff to get real big and strong. The Sandaime's eyes darkened at those words and cursed mentally, those fucking civilians, if only they knew who exactly they're mistreating so badly. I have to thank Makoto again for looking after the boy. One day I will proudly proclaim Naruto's lineage and enjoy how those worms fall over themselves in order to apologize for their treatment. Gigi, are you mad at me? Naruto asked, shaking a little. Unknown to Hiruzen, he leaked a bit of his killing intent, while indulging in his slightly morbid fantasies. Quickly gathering himself, he answered. No, Naruto-kun, not at all. I'm very happy to hear about your decision to eat more healthy. While I agree that ramen is truly delicious, it doesn't help with your growth. How about you make a list of all the groceries you need for 1 week and leave it with me? I will make certain that it is delivered to your home and deduct the price from your stipend. If you want to make changes, just bring me a new list, alright? Naruto's eyes lit up and he flung himself at the Hokage. Thank you Gigi, that's awesome. One more thing. See, I wanted to prepare for the academy, since I start in half a year. But I can't buy any shuriken or kunai. And when Kodo-chan comes by, she always makes scrolls go, Poof, and stuff pops out. I never really cared, 'cause you know how her food is awesome and distracts me, but yesterday I asked her and she told me it's called Fuinjutsu and I really want to learn that, 'cause you know I could take awesome Koto-chan food on missions, so I need supplies for it. Can you help me? Alright, I will help you, Naruto, the Sandaime declared with a smile on his face. It's soon lunchtime. How about we go to Ichiraku's for some ramen and then we get you your supplies? However, I won't buy you fresh shuriken and kunai, they're too dangerous, Naruto-kun. I'm sure some of my Anbu have leftovers that they don't need anymore, you can practice with them. Fuinjutsu is indeed a very interesting branch of the ninja arts. If you need help with it, you can ask me. Now, before we go, please wait outside my office, I need to talk to someone quickly, alright? Hi Gigi, Naruto exclaimed loudly, jumping from Hiruzen's lap and dashing towards the door. Once the door was closed behind him, the Sandaime turned towards the dog-masked Anbu hidden in one of the corners. Inu, you will be responsible for Naruto's groceries and the next time you come across Makoto please give her my thanks. Hi Hokage-sama, Inu replied. Very well. If you wish you may help Naruto-kun from time to time, his new interest in Anbu is cover enough. It'll be your job to buy his groceries and I'm certain you'll find some old kunai and shuriken in Anbu headquarters. When you're on missions, I think Itachi-kun has a sweet spot for Naruto, ask him to buy the groceries in your absence. Hi Hokage-sama. Ninja. A how-to, introduction. I write these lines in my 35th year on this earth. It has been 12 years since the founding of Konoha no Sato and with it, the union of multiple shinobi clans. Much has changed in those 12 years, with many nations following our example in creating unified hidden villages. And even though it shouldn't have, for many the meaning of what a shinobi is supposed to be changed as well. In order to train shinobi hopefuls from different clans, with different attitudes and different styles, the Konoha Ninja Academy was built. It is my belief that irrespectively of anyone's origins, the same foundation must be found in a competent ninja that go beyond technical abilities. The mind is as much a weapon as the body and like any weapon can be turned against yourself, genjutsu only being the most obvious example. In order for our great village to prosper, our shinobi and kunoichi shall be prepared for the cost and shall learn what it means to be a soldier of Konoha. For barely a decade after our founding and the peace that it brought with it, our ninja are starting to become lax. The merging of knowledge led to great advancements in the creation of jutsu, particularly of elemental nature. It also brought with it arrogance and the very dangerous principle of, the flashier, the better. In this book I shall write my thoughts on the true meaning of being a shinobi and how you become one. The next 4 months were probably the best in Naruto's short life. New Year came and went and Naruto kept studying and reading the scrolls he got from his parents' library. He used his time for useful stuff and didn't waste whole days away being bored. Plus, he made many different foods. While ramen was still on top of the ranking, sometimes it was a little much and he came to enjoy having a decent breakfast. Whenever the weather allowed it, Naruto sat on a tree in one of the rather secluded training grounds working on something. He was breezing through the academy curriculum. Admittedly, he wasn't able to remember everything he read and learned, but he was simply not that interested in geography. History was somewhat interesting, at least reading about the previous Hokage and the Shinobi World Wars, and by now he knew that math was a big thing with Fuinjutsu, so he tried his best. To his consternation, Naruto realized quite early that Fuinjutsu was very time-consuming. Before he could even start working on seals, he had to better his own handwriting. The one positive thing he got out of it was that he definitely became more patient. While he could not work on seals himself, he was still able to read the theory, which was very interesting, although there were some bigger words he didn't quite grasp. Fortunately for him, he had his Ji-san for help and on some occasions even the nice dog-masked Anbu whom he had seen around a few times before and quickly dubbed Inu ni. It was also quite interesting to see how everyday things for shinobi were actually quite complex in fuinjutsu terms. For example, storage scrolls, while widely utilized, were quite complex. Creating a pocket dimension, one of the words his Ji-san had helped him with, was not as simple as shinobi made it out to be and actually quite advanced for fuinjutsu work. The book, Ninja, a how-to, was one of his most prized possessions. It explained almost everything that was relevant to the training of a shinobi, from workout to nutrition, the better-known ninja arts and generally what it meant to be a ninja. While reading about weight training, Naruto also made the discovery that he should stay away from it, at least until his teenage years. Apparently, it was quite dangerous and could harm growth and bone structure if you went overboard with weights. Therefore, he only worked with his own body weight, meaning push-ups, sit-ups and the like. If he was honest with himself, he didn't really see the results of his training, but was determined to keep at it. The few things he had trouble with were his bukijutsu and chakra control. Throwing shuriken and kunai without proper instruction was quite troublesome, he soon realized. Instead of asking the sandaime for help, he decided to just wait until he started at the academy and use his time to learn the other stuff he would need. He didn't give up on his chakra control, however. Unlocking his chakra went without trouble, but afterwards, he seemed to be stuck. Being completely unable to keep a leaf anywhere on his body since it just blew away every time he tried it, he looked into other exercises. 1 month later, Naruto was running up and down the trees in his chosen training ground. He realized that his problem with chakra control was the exact opposite to other ninjas. Other ninjas worked from using the smallest amount up to higher amounts, since with exercises their chakra reserves also expanded. Naruto already had quite big reserves, so he had to start on a more chakra-consuming exercise and work his way down. Since learning tree walking, or more exactly, sticking to a surface, Naruto tried the leaf exercise with different things. He started out with pebbles, since those should withstand more force than a leaf and not just blow away. To Naruto's delight, his self-invented exercise worked quite well. He was certain that within the next 2 months, he would be able to do the normal leaf exercise. It was in the middle of April, when things started to get even better for Naruto. He was sitting on his usual branch on his usual tree in his usual training ground, when he heard something land in front of him. Startled by the sudden sound, Naruto looked up from his scroll and the person in front of him, who seemed eerily familiar. He looked rather young, in his early teenage years maybe, with black hair in a ponytail and standard Anbu gear. "Hello Naruto-kun, what are you doing here?" Recognizing the monotone voice for one of the ANBUs that protected him once, Naruto's face lit up. "Weasel-chan, shouldn't you wear your mask? I'm currently off duty and as such, please call me Itachi," the now identified youth said, with a slight ticking mark forehead, being offended by the chan suffix. "Okay. Well, I'm learning to become a great ninja. Just wait, I'll have a cool mask soon enough." "So, you want to become an Anbu Naruto-kun? That's quite the ambition. If you need any help, feel free to ask me," Itachi said, in the same monotone voice. "Really? That would be so awesome. Can you show me how to throw kunai and shuriken, and can you show me some taijutsu? Oh, and you must know some super cool ninjutsu too, please," Naruto said, masterfully executing a puppy eyes no jutsu without the use of hand seals. Itachi's eyes widened slightly and he staggered back on the tree branch. "Okay, I'll help you, but only if you promise never to do that again," Itachi said, fear creeping into his voice. Naruto jumped up from his previous position, being on his knees with his hands together as if in prayer. He lost his footing however, and dropped from the branch face planting into the forest floor. Sighing to himself, Itachi thought, "He can use my help. Sasuke and Izumi have 2-san and Ka-san to help them, and anyway, I owe it to Kushina Obaa-san for babysitting me." He jumped down from the tree, landing right in front of an unresponsive Naruto. "Alright, listen Naruto-kun. I will help you. However, in exchange you have to follow my orders without complaint. Naruto groaned audibly before lifting his head from the forest floor. Okay Itachi ni, let's start, was the rather unenthusiastic response. Alright, first off, I won't teach you any ninjutsu or genjutsu until you start at the academy, and even then, only the standard academy jutsu. I will help you with recognizing and breaking enemy genjutsu though, Itachi said, ticking of his finger. But Ni-san, ignoring Naruto's outburst, he continued. Second, I will teach you the academy taijutsu, since it's useful knowledge for every shinobi of the leaf. Although many clan members use their own taijutsu, there are many shinobi relying on the leaf's general style. Knowing the style means knowing how your future teammates will fight, means you will be anticipate their attacks and help accordingly. Third, I don't have much time due to my Anbu responsibilities. If I'm available, I'll meet you here. If you're not here, I won't go looking for you. Do we have an agreement? Hi. So, with what do we start? Joint training, evasion and bukijutsu. Itachi answered and threw a blunt kunai, and Naruto, who dodged the offensive item in the nick of time with an indignant outcry, right before he blanched at the multitude of shuriken and kunai flying at him. XXX. 11. March 1297. I understand that you enjoy your new assignment, Itachi-kun. Hiruzen asked one of his top Anbu operators. Despite only being 12 years old, Itachi was on the verge of taking over captainship from Inu, also known as Kakashi Hatake. Hi, Hokage-sama, was the dutiful response. As I understand you have taken to train Naruto-kun in your free time this past month, what do you think of him? Well, with all due respect Hokage-sama, we might want to keep this between us. The Sandaime nodded, and after a hand sign 3 of the 4 Anbu watching over the Hokage this afternoon vanished, while the 4th knelt in front of the Hokage. With your permission Hokage-sama, the dog mask wearing individual said. Of course, Kakashi-kun, you may stay. Hiruzen answered the unasked question and activated the privacy seals in his office. Now Itachi-kun, your assessment. He's a weird blend of both his parents, to be honest. The Sandaime straightened his back at those words, suddenly looking more like the fabled shinobi he is, than the grandfatherly figure many saw in him. I was not aware that you knew of his lineage. My mother was very close with Kushina Obaa-san, and I was aware of her pregnancy. She said that not only my mother would give me a sibling. Itachi said with a sad smile, my mother makes it a point to visit him from time to time even though she doesn't tell anyone else. Plus, he looks like a mini yondaime, loves ramen and pranks, and then there is his prisoner. The yondaime would never burden another family, if he didn't chose his own first. As I said, he is a weird blend of his parents. While he can be irritably goofy when just walking around, he is also very focused on his studies. While he doesn't learn theory extremely easy, aside from fuinjutsu that is, he picks up the practical parts very well. His shuriken and kunai throwing improved greatly with very little instruction. Most importantly, however, are his instincts. Even though he has little experience in the shinobi arts or fighting in general, he acts without hesitation and often knows instinctively which is the correct action to take. While he's not exceptional when it comes to learning techniques, his application of what he learns is better than anyone I have ever seen. That is very interesting. I expect great things from him. And he will achieve them. If he keeps studying like he does right now, I have no doubt that he won't need more than 2 years at the academy. Maybe even less. I see. In that case, we're fortunate that Kakashi-kun will be available for a Jonin sensei position by the time Naruto-kun graduates. He will need an unbiased instructor to pass the Genin exam. XXX. 5. May 1298. Life for Naruto Uzumaki was quite good, if he might say so himself. Although he attended the academy only irregularly, he passed his exams quite easily. The only thing that confused him was that his exams, more often than not, seemed quite difficult for a first-year student and asked for knowledge that was only taught in the later part of his father's books and notes. His training with Itachi let him skip most taijutsu and bukijutsu classes. While not perfect, he was certain that it would be good enough to pass the graduation exam. Naruto knew that he would be able to take the exam early, which drove him even more to further his studies, since he got the distinct feeling that his senseis didn't like him much. Some of them even tried to sabotage him by worsening his taijutsu stance, which gave him only more reason to skip the class altogether. It was rather difficult to assess his own abilities, but he knew that he was easily the best in his own class. While not necessarily stronger than his classmates, he was a lot faster and his shuriken and kunai throwing was flawless on the shorter distance used for first years. Thanks to his improved nutrition, Naruto had shot up in height. To be a little above average for his age, he stood at about 4 feet 5 inches. Unfortunately, that meant buying new clothes, which meant dealing with civilians. The only thing he was able to buy was a bright orange jumpsuit. While orange was his favorite color a little more than a year ago, that had changed when he first saw a picture of his mother. He thought that her red hair was super cool, and thus he had a new favorite color. All that aside, he figured that orange wasn't exactly something a shinobi should run around in. They were supposed to be stealthy after all, or so his favorite book said. All the more reason to become a shinobi as fast as possible, so he could shop in the shinobi-only stores that sold real shinobi gear, like the so-called Anbu style pants. The only academy sensei he got along with was Iruka. Although the scar-faced Chunin was quite vexed with him when he missed classes, he was very fair and the only person to catch him regularly after a prank, Anbu included. Due to his studies in Fuinjutsu, his pranks changed quite a bit, and just now Naruto was on his way to the Hokage Tower for 2 reasons. First, he needed his Ji-san's help for the graduation exam, and second, he wanted to experience his newest invention firsthand. This newest invention being a seal made to prank the Hokage. It had taken him hours to create the seals perfectly, since his handwriting still needed a lot of work. Out of the 10 level, by which Fuinjutsu users were rated, Naruto was only about half through level 2. However, the ranking was somewhat useless after level 7. The reason for that is quite simple. Until level 6 there is a very strict guideline as to what the user should be able to do and which books are the best to study. After level 6, Fuinjutsu branches off into subdivisions and there are only very few available scrolls or books for those. Since there are only very few ninja actually practicing Fuinjutsu, there's no one with real authority to rate the Fuinjutsu user correctly. The only reason the system was still in place is for non-combat use, such as weaponsmiths, who use Fuinjutsu to improve swords and such. Dashing past the secretary, Naruto opened the slide door to the Hokage's office, but didn't enter immediately. He stood at the threshold looking into the office. The whole office was completely turned upside down, furniture actually having turned 180 degrees and resting on the ceiling the correct way. That was even better than planned. His seals should only reverse the gravity. He had no idea why the furniture turned themselves. "Hello Gigi, your office looks all wrong," Naruto said while smiling cheekily. One could see the reason as to why Naruto didn't enter the office, sitting behind the Hokage's desk. A scowling Hiruzen Sarutobi sat there, upside down working on paperwork. A mad glint suddenly appeared in his eyes when he saw Naruto in front of his office. "Naruto, I knew it was you. If you don't reverse this right now, I'll forbid Tuki from serving you ramen ever again. I swear to Kami, I'll do it." Naruto blanched at the outburst. He might have gone a little overboard with this one. Waving his hand in front of him he said, "I'll do it Gigi. Just leave me my ramen, I swear I won't prank you again." With his last word spoken, Naruto dashed into the adjacent room and ripped a paper seal from the wall that was shared with the Hokage's office. Repeating his action with the outside wall and the room across from the first, he arrived in front of the slide door just in time to see the reversal of his prank. Every item in the office, Hokage included, made half a flip and landed on the floor. Hiruzen collected himself and took a few deep breaths. If he was quite honest, He was amazed by the pranks the young boy could make. His Anbu spent a good half-hour trying to figure out what was wrong, without success. Although the pranks were much more troublesome, they were also more enjoyable, if they weren't played on him, that is. He still wasn't certain whether he should regret the day he bought Naruto his Fuinjutsu equipment or not. Naruto-kun, were you only here to see the results of your latest prank, or is there another reason? While we're at it, how did you do that? The Hokage asked, raising his voice a little at the end. Naruto grinned cheekily while answering, well, it was part of the reason I wanted to come by. I didn't expect the furniture to turn, to be quite honest. As to how I did it, I simply reversed the effects of a gravitation seal. As you know, increasing gravity is quite simple and doesn't take much chakra. The opposite, however, let's just say it's fortunate that I got so much chakra. The seal's effects would have reversed on its own quite soon, I guess. As to the other reason, I actually need your help, Gigi. You play a prank on me and then dare to ask for my help. Give me a reason to actually help you. Well, I'm certain I can do even more annoying thing with seals, Naruto answered, grinning. Plus, I actually didn't expect to need your help. Itachi has almost no time for me anymore. Ever since he was made Anbu captain, he had less and less time. The Sandaime nodded to himself. Although the reason for Itachi's absence was more related to the issues with his clan, rather than his position, Naruto was right. Alright Naruto-kun, what do you need help with? Well, you see, I actually want to take the graduation test this year. I mean, I have 3 tries and maybe I'll be able to do it. I actually suspected that you might try, but I don't see a problem with that. Well, I know I'll pass Taijutsu and Bukijutsu and the written test should be possible, but I can't get this stupid clone jutsu to work. Henjin Kawarimi are super easy, but this stupid clone is always dead, Naruto said, his voice laced with annoyance. Have you tried using more chakra, Naruto-kun? Of course, but they get even worse then, Naruto answered, grimacing. He has too much chakra and not good enough control to make a simple illusion then, Hiruzen mused. I believed Kushina had the same problem, what to do though? Gigi. I'm sorry Naruto-kun, I was just thinking about the problem and I might have a solution. You see, it's quite possible that you have too much chakra to make a simple clone. The Uzumaki were quite famous for their large chakra reserves, Hiruzen said. Wadea mean, the Uzumaki. You telling me I have a clan? Naruto asked, trying to keep the ruse of his ignorance concerning his heritage up. Sadly, no, the Uzumakis were wiped out at the start of the Second Shinobi World War. It seems that our history classes aren't as good as they should be. You see, the Uzumaki lived in Uzushiogakure no Sato and were quite famous for several things. We were closely allied, but unfortunately unable to help them in time, when they were attacked by the combined force of several villages. To this day, we honor them, by wearing their symbol on our chunin and jonin vests. Hiruzen explained. That last tidbit of information was actually new for Naruto. He knew that the villages were allied and he had seen the Uzumaki swirl but never made the connection to the vests. Well, then my mom or dad must have survived, maybe others survived too. I will find them and bring them back to Konoha. Naruto said with conviction in his voice. That is a wonderful goal, Naruto. However, back to your problem. I'm going to teach you a different clone technique. Under normal circumstances, I would never teach this to an 8-year-old, but your chakra reserves should allow you to perform the jutsu. I could teach you the elemental version of the clone jutsu, but I think this one will prove itself quite useful in the future. XXX. 14. July 1298. The last 2.5 months before his first graduation exam went by rather swift for Naruto. He was revising the written part of the exam a lot, slacking off in his Fuinjutsu studies in exchange. The young blonde usually had a quick workout in the morning, then either went to the academy or studied by himself. In the afternoon, he would work on his Tai and Bukijutsu and finish off with his chakra control training. Naruto strictly followed the advice from his books concerning the physical aspects of his training. His body was still too young for heavy workouts, and combined with Tai and Bukijutsu training, he did easily enough to build some muscle. Today, however, was special. He skipped his morning routine entirely and went straight to the academy. It was after all the day he had his graduation exam. Naruto thought himself more than a little lucky to have met Itachi over a year ago. The teenager had explained to him how the graduation exam would be marked. There would be 5 tests, namely, Tai, Nin and Bukijutsu, physical conditioning and academic knowledge. To pass, you had to score at least 60% on 3 exams and at least 50% overall. Naruto knew he would pass Nin and Bukijutsu easily. Due to his young age, the physical conditioning and taijutsu exams would be rather difficult, and he was not exactly the most diligent student. Luckily, Itachi explained that the written exam focused on command structure, the shinobi code of conduct, and related topics. While a lot of academic knowledge was important, it could always be supplemented by teammates. Behavior in front of clients and on missions, however, was paramount. As such, the focus lay heavily on those aspects. Thinking about his impending graduation, after all there was no doubt he would pass, he was a little saddened. While he didn't exactly enjoy the few lectures he witnessed, he actually got along with a few of his year mates. The Akamichi, Nara and Inuzuka clanhairs were quite fun to hang out with. They weren't exactly best friends, but maybe he could invite them to a restaurant after he received his first few mission payments. Most of the other kids in his class he didn't even know by name. He was aware of the other heirs of major clans, namely the Aburame, Hyuga, and Yamanaka clan, and then of course the younger siblings of Itachi. When he first started at the academy, Naruto had tried to befriend them, but Sasuke acted like an arrogant prick and glared at anyone who even tried to talk to his sister. Suffice to say, it was his first and last interaction with the 2 Uchihas. Itachi had actually laughed at his brother's behavior when Naruto told him about it. Itachi never laughed. Thinking about the Uchiha also left him pondering about Itachi's behavior lately. While Itachi didn't have as much time as he used to since the autumn of last year, due to his promotion, it got even worse in the last few months. And when he actually met with Naruto, he seemed distracted and extremely stressed. Naruto mused whether his goal of joining Anbu might be a bad idea after all. Arriving at the academy, he went to his usual classroom. He received some weird looks from his classmates. He was after all not seen too often in the classroom. Choji quickly roped him into some small talk, since Shikamaru was taking a nap, as usual. When the bell rang, the students started to quieten down and Iruka stood in front of the class. As you know, this is the day of graduation. While not recommended, any and all students are allowed to sit the exam. Be aware that during the allocated 5 years to pass the exam, you are only allowed 3 tries. If you're not interested in taking the exam, today various Chunin and Jonin will show off some of their skills to you. For those who want to try for graduation, the written exam will be held in classroom B003. Everyone else follow me outside. XXX. Anyo, Ashiro-sensei. What? Came rather aggravated reply from his Chunin examiner. Naruto was currently tested for the 3 academy ninjutsu. Having narrowly passed his 3 weakest exams, he breezed through the kunai and shuriken throwing. He had already performed both the henge and kawarimi flawlessly. His only hurdle to becoming a shinobi was the clone jutsu. Hokage-sama told me that I had too much chakra for a simple bunshin no jutsu and taught me a different version. He told me that I should inform you about the change, and if there were any problems, you should bring it up with him. Naruto said, trying to sound as innocent as possible. He had already noticed the animosity the Chunin held for him and was grateful that his exam was almost over. XXX. Gigi. I passed. Look. I told you could do it, Datbeo. With a strained smile, Hiruzen Sarutobi turned away from the window overlooking Konoha, towards the blonde boy, who held a Konoha Hitai 8 with a blue strip of cloth towards him. Very good, Naruto. I'm proud of you. Unfortunately, I have a lot of work to do, otherwise I would have invited you to some ramen. How about you indulge yourself and tell Tuki to put it on my tab? I'm sure Ayame wants to see you too and hear all about your exam. Naruto came to a halt and peered at the Hokage. He was sure that his Ji-san would have gone out to celebrate with him. His face lost a little of his happiness when he said, "Sure Gigi, I'll do that, thanks." Oh, and Naruto, one more thing. The Ninpu, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, ninja art, shadow clone technique, has a secondary function apart from producing a solid clone. You might have noticed that you receive your clone's memories whenever you dispel them. This makes them very good for spying and general intelligence gathering. With your growing chakra reserves, you will soon be able to produce rather large numbers of clones. Jonins who can create multiple clones often use them to train muscle memory or chakra control in their downtime, since both are more mental aspects than physical aspects of training. However, I caution you to not use this ability for a while. Your mind is still very young, and receiving multiple different memories can put a heavy strain on your brain. Fortunately, that only happens when you actually concentrate on the memories you receive and try to process them. Therefore, using multiple clones for mundane tasks shouldn't be a problem, as long as you simply ignore the information you receive once they are destroyed. Promise me that you will keep training the usual way until I tell you that it is safe. You're very young and already genin, there's no need for you to accelerate your training even more. Huh, that's awesome Gigi. I promise, but when do you think I can do that? Chakra control is super annoying to learn and having clones do it would save so much time. Not before you are 13 Naruto, you need to grow both physically and mentally first. Considering that you can use the Kage Bunshin for recon missions, I give you permission to use one clone to assist with your training. Be aware though, that while you receive the memory of the clone, your progress will be slowed down. The reason for that is rather simple. Your clone has all your knowledge at the moment of its creation and simply works with that knowledge until destruction without actually processing the experiences it gains. In other words, the clone simply gathers information and returns that information to you upon destruction. It's still up to you to process and analyze the information, do you understand? Hi Gigi. I gotta go, still have a month until team assignments and lots of training to do, Naruto exclaimed, while turning around, making his way out of the Hokage's office. And Naruto, be home early today please, and don't forget to register for your shinobi license in the coming week. Hi Gigi, will do. XXX. Later that night, Naruto was awakened rather rudely, in the darkest hour of the night. Naruto-kun, wake up. Huh. Naruto moaned sleepily before noticing the other person in his bedroom. Itachi ni, what are you doing here? I don't have much time Naruto-kun, I'm leaving on a long-term mission and wanted to say goodbye first. Long-term what? How long will you be gone? I don't know Naruto. Since I won't be able to train you for a while, I have a gift for you, Itachi said, handing Naruto 2 scrolls. Open them tomorrow, consider the second a graduation gift. Arigato ni-san, I wish I had a gift for you too. There's one thing I would ask of you Naruto. You're a shinobi of Konoha now, please watch over my siblings while I'm gone. I promise. Naruto said with determination. Arigato Naruto-kun. I'm afraid I'll have to leave now. Until next time, and Itachi vanished into the night. Ninja. A how-to, Chapter 1 Being a ninja. What does it truly mean to be a shinobi or kunoichi? Different takes on history tell us different stories. It is generally agreed that the Sage of Six Paths made the first steps towards using chakra as it is used today. Over the centuries much changed and even more was forgotten. Too many academy students see the career of a ninja in the wrong light. It isn't some great adventure, neither is it some glorious path to riches. Our forefathers taught us that being a shinobi means to endure, to carry the hardships and burdens of our people, to defend them and to carry on doing so against the worst adversaries whether mental or physical. I believe there is more to it than simply endure, however. I believe it is only in battle that one gets to know himself and those around him. For it is in battle when you have to be honest with yourself to stand against your enemies. To be aware of your strength and your weakness. Being a ninja is path to self-awareness, and there is no friendship that compares to those you forge in battle. While the meaning of being a ninja has not changed much over the years, how to be a ninja has. I have addressed this problem in the introduction already. Our shinobi and kunoichi are becoming lax. Being a shinobi is more than breathing fire or shoot lightning from your fingers. It may appear hypocritical to hear such words from the foremost user of Suiden Jutsu, however there is a place and a time. Ninja once were silent killers. The shadows that strike without being seen. We used to laugh at samurai and their flashy, honorable ways only to become like them. Being a ninja is not honorable, it is not fun, and there is nothing glorious about it. True ninja are those that are not seen, not heard, and most importantly not noticed at all. When trying to achieve a mission goal, always remember, it is best when no one notices what your goal was. There is always more than one way to complete your mission. Choose the most inconspicuous, the one that leaves the least traces, always. Despite having just graduated, the next few days were very depressing for Naruto. He spent the morning after his graduation in his apartment, looking at Itachi's gifts. The first was a jutsu scroll for the Shunshin. Naruto bounced around his apartment quite a bit. However, there was also a note attached stating that he should start with water walking before trying the jutsu. Apparently, the jutsu could be quite dangerous when performed with bad chakra control. His other gift was a storage scroll, and when Naruto pushed some chakra into it, a box with 50 new Anbu grade kunai and shuriken popped out. Considering that Anbu only used the best equipment, one could assume that the weapons were quite expensive. Naruto smiled at the added strips of soft leather and the short instruction on how to put the leather on the kunai handle. Naruto had debated with Itachi many times over the last year about how kunai were technically close combat knives, not throwing knives, and apparently, Itachi tried to mock him a little bit about it. Naruto decided to wrap the leather around 10 of the kunai and to use them as actual knives and the rest for throwing. After having eaten a healthy lunch, Naruto decided to visit the Hokage and show him Itachi's gift. That was when he heard the first rumors about the Uchiha massacre. Everyone was saying that Itachi went mad and killed his whole clan. Apart from the fact that Naruto didn't believe Itachi would ever do that, how could a single man wipe out a whole clan? He knew Itachi was super strong, but there were other strong Uchihas for sure. To his utter dismay, he couldn't even ask his Ji-san. The Hokage had absolutely no time for Naruto, due to the massacre and its aftermath. XXX 25. July 1298. 1 week later, Naruto wasn't certain how to feel about Itachi. Although his Ji-san had confirmed that Itachi massacred his whole clan, Naruto didn't believe that Itachi, as the villagers put it, went around the bend. He had visited Naruto on the night it happened and he seemed quite normal. If he were actually insane, he would have killed Naruto too, anything else didn't make sense. And he left his little siblings alive, so he definitely cared about them. Finally, there was still that nagging thought that even Itachi couldn't kill so many people without being noticed. In conclusion, Naruto really wasn't sure what to think. He decided he would simply ask Itachi himself one day, not even considering that Itachi was now a S-rank nuke nin and Naruto as a shinobi of the leaf was therefore obliged to kill him on sight. Naruto had also realized that Kodo-chan had to have been an Uchiha. When the women had come by the very first time, she had told him that she was not supposed to visit him, so they had to keep it a secret. Instead of risking a 6-year-old accidentally slipping, she simply didn't tell him her name and told Naruto to call her Kodo-chan. He knew that she would have come by after she heard about his graduation or would have told him if she were to be out of the village for a longer time. The week had also a slight upside, however. After having talked about Itachi with his Ji-san, the Hokage took him shopping for his shinobi gear. He already had all the kunai and shuriken he needed, but there were still clothes and ninja wire and bandages and all the other stuff he had to buy. The Sandaime took him to his personal shinobi outfitter, Hiroshi's shinobi gear. Apparently Hiroshi and his Ji-san fought together in the First Shinobi War, and after being injured, Hiroshi opened his shop. Ever since, Hiruzen was a loyal customer. Naruto quite liked Hiroshi, who treated him kindly. However, he declined the offer of buying a weapon, having already decided that he first wanted to work on the more general aspects of his skills before taking up a weapon. Although Naruto was already certain that he would choose some sort of sword, it was just by far the coolest weapon. Naruto left the store with his Ji-san on his heels and clad in brand new, Anbu style, pants. Meaning black cargo pants with lots of pockets, finished off by bandages around his shins. For his upper body, he had chosen a black, sleeveless hoodie with red trim on the waist and shoulders and a custom-made, red Uzumaki swirl on his back. The ensemble was finished by black shinobi sandals and red fingerless gloves. Naruto himself thought that he looked quite badass. He wore 2 standard pouches on the right side of his hip. One with medical equipment, such as bandages, blood replenishing pills and soldier pills, and one for shuriken and standard kunai. Bandaged on his right thigh was a pouch dedicated to his 10 leather-hilted kunai, and on his left thigh was another pouch with various supplies such as ninja wire and various seal tags. All the pouches being a natural gray color. Having forgotten about his ninja registration, the Sandaime accompanied Naruto to the administrative building. After a quick photograph with his new look, he handed his registration form to the Sandaime and made his way to Ichiraku's. The Hokage decided to retire to his office instead of abusing his wallet even more after the shopping tour Naruto had just made on his pocket. XXX 17. August 1298. Stupid, biased sensei and his stupid genin test, grumbled one Naruto Uzumaki on his way back to his apartment. Changing his mind, he jumped onto the next roof and made his way towards the Hokage tower. He needed advice, and with Itachi gone, the only one he trusted was his Ji-san. Due to his early graduation and general disposition, Naruto just narrowly made the cut. Since he was still rather small compared to the usual graduates, his taijutsu wasn't rated too highly either. This led to him finishing in the middle of the pack of graduates. Therefore, his former teammates were both civilian-born, finishing their exams in his grade spectrum. Most students from ninja families ended up with top grades. Being only 9, his, now former, teammates didn't take him too serious and they failed the test set by their Jonin sensei spectacularly. Now, he had 2 choices. Go back to the academy for another year, which seemed rather dull, or join the genin reserves. Joining the reserves meant getting missions from time to time, filling up empty spots on teams. For low-rank missions it was usually a genin team with a Jonin sensei, which was missing one genin, due to injuries. For higher-ranked missions, sometimes reserve genin were picked to fill the spot of a missing chunin temporarily. However, this also meant that he had no way to participate in the chunin exams, and getting a field promotion in peace times was a lot more difficult. Therefore, he needed his Ji-san's advice. He would know what was best. Unfortunately, the office was currently occupied by all the Jonin senseis reporting back from their genin tests. Although Naruto's patience had definitely gotten better, he was still fidgeting the time he was waiting outside the office. When the last Jonin had finally left, he quickly made his way inside. Oi Gigi, I need your help. I failed the stupid genin test, Naruto said, a little downtrodden. I know, Naruto-kun, I just received the results. I guess you don't know what to do. Hi Gigi, I think I'll join the reserves, but then again, I don't want to be a genin forever. Flashback 3. August 1298, 1 week before team assignments. What do you mean I won't get a genin team, Hokage-sama? I thought you want me to work with Naruto. Yes, that was the plan, Kakashi-kun. However, due to recent events, we're short on personnel as you should well know. Anbu agents had to take over the village security and missions are stacking up. Not to mention that you're currently the only person with a Sharingan in the village. The council voted against your appointment, because the elders want to keep you back, in order for you to take up the 2 Uchihas when they graduate. But that's still 4 years from now. By then, any team I would take now, would have easily made Chunin, Kakashi exclaimed. I know that Kakashi, the Hokage said, rising his voice a little, but there's nothing I can do. Some pushed for the Uchihas to graduate early, but I blocked them from the start. I won't have them under the strain of ninja life, only a year after their whole clan was slaughtered. If I can, I will make certain that they stay the whole 5 years in the academy. The elder will push for some Jonin that will fail Naruto. Danzo still has his eyes on him. You won't allow Danzo to train him, so the only way for Danzo to get to him is by making Naruto desperate for training. Kakashi exclaimed angrily. Remember who you're talking to, Kakashi, Hiruzen said, emitting some ki. Gomen Hokage-sama, I was out of line. Hi, you were Kakashi-kun. Don't think I have made no contingency plan. If Naruto fails, I will push him into joining the reserves. I have complete control over mission assignments, therefore I can make certain that Naruto gets decent experience. He should be able to make 2 or 3 Kage Bunshin by now, so he can complete D ranks all by himself. Then I will simply put him on as many C ranks as possible, without raising too much suspicion. Having people think he gets preferential treatment would make the situation only worse. But what about his training? Without a sensei to help him along, anything above C rank could be dangerous. My hope is that one of the Chunin teams will take him on permanently after seeing his performance. They could help him along nicely. If nothing changes after a few months, I believe you could visit him from time to time in his training ground. He uses one of the more secluded close to the village wall, I believe it's number 23. Naruto can be quite resourceful if need be, I'm certain he will find someone to show him some things sooner or later. And lastly, in case he's still a genin in 4 years, we'll simply put him on your team with the 2 Uchihas. That could actually be quite nice. Having an experienced genin would make things easier. On the topic of early graduation, why is Naruto the only one graduating early? I was certain more would try. There were a few more that tried, but no one else passed, and I don't believe there will be any early graduates in the near future. When I effectively blocked the push for the Uchiha's early graduation, I apparently put ideas in the head of some clan heads. They want to abolish the whole concept of early graduation. Why would they want to do that? Look at it this way. Of the 2 most recognized early graduates in the last 20 years, one has so much mental scarring that he's perpetually late to anything that isn't an A- or S-ranked mission, because he's staring at the memorial stone, and the other just massacred almost his whole clan. Then of course there's another early graduate, that was betrayed by her master and infected with a cursed seal. That was mean, Hokage-sama, Kakashi said childishly in response to the jibe on his lateness, and there are many early graduates that developed well. My apologies, Kakashi-kun, came the completely insincere voice of Hiruzen, and while you're correct, they don't think that the risk is worth it, especially in peace times. I'm certain, if war looms on the horizon, early graduation shall be the norm once again. I'm just happy that Naruto made the cut in time. Hi, me too. Very well, I have been assigned to border patrol since I won't become a sensei, so I won't be around for the next 3 months. I know, Kakashi-kun, I was the one who assigned it, Hiruzen said, grinning slightly. But why would you do that to me? Because even though you didn't have to be here, you didn't know that. You were so late, that you actually missed the whole damn assignment. Kakashi deflated at the rebuke and hunched out of the office. Hi Hokage-sama, he said, idly waving his hand over his shoulder. Flashback end. Yes, I think joining the reserves might be the best for now, Naruto-kun. You do know how the mission ranking system works, don't you? Hi Gigi, missions go from D to S rank, D ranks being the easiest. Exactly. What you don't know is that D ranks are solely for genin. They are used to improve teamwork and essential skills you need before going outside the village. Some would call them chores, but they're actually quite useful. For example, babysitting is not so different from escort or protection missions, it just doesn't involve fighting. Or catching runaway pets involves setting up traps and working together. Hi Gigi. It sounds boring though. Yes, I thought you would say so Naruto-kun, Hiruzen chuckled. However, due to the jutsu I taught you, you should be able to do those missions all on your own. If you do 2 or 3 per day you should have a nice steady income and still enough time for training. I will make certain that you get some more interesting missions soon enough. Now, I have another gift for you. Do you know what this is? The Sandame asked, producing a sheet of paper. Looks like paper. Hi Naruto-kun, but this is special paper. We call it chakra paper, it shows a ninja's affinity for nature manipulation. Take me as an example. When I was a genin, I had a strong affinity for earth and a minor for fire. When you master one elemental manipulation, more often than not, a ninja develops other affinities. By now I have mastered every nature manipulation, although my earth jutsus are still the strongest per chakra input and I am able to mold earth chakra the faster than any other element. Whoa Gigi, that's amazing, Naruto exclaimed, snatching the paper from Hiruzen's hand. So how does it work? You simply push your chakra into it Naruto-kun. It reacts depending on your affinity. Crumbling for earth, turning to ash for fire, crinkling for lighting, getting wet for water or splitting in half for air. Naruto did as he was told and a moment later the paper became wet before splitting in half. That would mean affinity for water with a minor wind affinity Naruto-kun. Cool. This makes me even more badass. They never taught us how to master nature manipulation at the academy though. With good reason. Nature manipulation is only needed to advance to Jonin rank Naruto-kun. As you know, becoming Chunin is possible by either field promotion or taking part in the Chunin exams. However, you don't need to display any particular skill set. It is different for Jonin. Since Jonin can become sensei themselves, they need to be at least competent in the 3 main shinobi arts. Competence in ninjutsu means mastering at least one nature manipulation and being proficient in the use of a second element. There is also a lot of knowledge that needs to be showcased, and has to be learned by the aspiring Jonins themselves, at least the academic aspects. However, since you can't fully train your body yet, I thought you might like to start with nature manipulation. After all, it's never too early to hone your skills. Mastering an element is done in 2 steps or with some elements in 3. Although, the first step is very similar with every element. I'll tell you about it in a minute. I suggest you start with water manipulation, since it's your dominant element, Naruto-kun. Using elemental jutsu usually means transforming your chakra directly into the chosen elemental nature. When mastering an element, you change that process. Instead of transforming chakra, you use it to influence said element. Take the Doden, Doryuheiki no Jutsu, Earth Style, Mud Wall Technique, as an example. There are 2 ways to perform the jutsu. The unexperienced earth user transforms chakra into earth and spits it out, creating a wall. Someone who has worked on earth manipulation uses his chakra to influence the earth around him, rising an earth wall from the ground. This gives you a distinct advantage in a fight. You utilize less chakra for the same result and the wall appears much faster. On the other hand, the Suiten, Teppadama no Jutsu, water style, liquid bullets takes longer if you don't transform your chakra, since you would have to swallow water first, in order to manipulate it. It is of course possible to use the water within your body, but that's quite dangerous and not recommended. That is what makes water manipulation so special. While water is everywhere around us, it is often not in its pure form, but in the air or the plants. Tobarama Senju, a true master of water manipulation, was able to dissolve water out of anything. He is to this day the only ninja to use water manipulation on such a scale. A true master of elemental ninjutsu knows when to transform his chakra into the chosen element and when to manipulate the surrounding resources. As you know, we use hand seals to mold and guide our chakra depending on what we want it to do. However, with good control over your element, it is possible to use less hand seals, since you have direct control over the element, without the need to guide it. Halfway through the Hokage's explanation, Naruto became slightly glassy-eyed. Tobirama Senju was one of the foremost Suiten users. At least now I know who the TS guy was that wrote how to ninja. Bringing his focus back on the old man, Naruto heard the end of his monologue. Awesome Gigi, so how does it work? It seems I have lots of training to do. I plan to show this to you whether you passed or not, so I came prepared, the Sandaime said, picking up a lonely leaf from his desk. As I said, nature manipulation for every element is very similar in the first step. You try to recreate what happened to the chakra paper with an ordinary leaf. While the goal is to influence and not create the element in the end, we have to start small. The idea is to do the nature transformation outside of your body. This way you experience the feeling of a chakra-infused element, even though you created it, Hiruzen said, dampening the leaf in his hand with his chakra. Alright Gigi, so I just try to transform my chakra without using hand seals and outside of my body, correct? Exactly Naruto-kun. However, I suggest, you first learn a few D or C ranked water jutsus, to get a feel for your element. I believe the genin part of the shinobi library contains a few. There might also be some other low-ranked jutsu you want to look into. Remember, it's better to master a few, than being sloppy at many. One other thing. From now on you'll have to buy your groceries again yourself, Hiruzen said. But Gigi, you know the merchants don't like me and don't want to sell me their stuff, Naruto exclaimed a little depressed. Hi Naruto, I know. However, you're a shinobi now. Maybe you should remind those merchants that discriminating and mistreating one of the village's ninja is considered treason. As you know, there's only one punishment for traitors, the Hokage explained. Now, off you go, I have paperwork to finish. Hi, I'll be on my way then. Bye Gigi. XXX. 18. August 1298. After 1 month of D-rank missions, Naruto had formed the distinguished opinion that they sucked. At first it was somewhat funny to abuse his Kage Bunshins to do the work of 4 ninja simultaneously. Quickly enough though, the whole thing became repetitive. On the upside, he had lots of time to train. His usual routine hadn't changed much since the academy, only that he now did D ranks instead of studying. He was still working more on agility and endurance rather than strength, since his body wouldn't be able to support real weight training. With his improving chakra control, he would be able to supplement his strength by enhancing his muscles with chakra. This would have to do until he was a little older. His speed at least was quite respectable by now. His afternoon changed a little bit as well. Instead of doing chakra control for an hour, he let one clone do it the whole afternoon, which actually helped him more, if only by a margin. After lunch, he usually did 1 hour of each Tai and Bukijutsu. He even added the use of ninja wire to his shuriken and kunai throwing repertoire. His taijutsu was still the standard academy style, although he had looked into both his parents' taijutsu scrolls. He didn't want to learn difficult stances from a scroll without supervision. He'd rather learn it correctly the first time instead of going back time and time again, because his balance was off or something like that. In his few taijutsu classes at the academy, he had seen how long it took other students to work out basic mistakes and he wanted to avoid that at all cost. So he just trained what he knew and hoped that someone could help him soon. By 3 in the afternoon, he usually worked on his jutsu. His clone had become quite proficient at water walking, and by extension, Naruto himself too. After 1 month, he had added a few useful techniques to the standard Academy 3. As his Ji-san had advised him, he learned a few Suiten jutsu. He didn't get the scrolls from the shinobi library however, but from his parents' personal scrolls. He had discovered the hidden door to his parents' jutsu vault only recently. It was protected by another blood seal hidden in the library. Since both his parents had quite the collection of jutsu for almost any shinobi art, the genjutsu section was rather small, he didn't have time to look through all of them. Naruto had obviously heard of his father's most famous jutsu, the Hiraishin and Rasengan, but knew they were too difficult for him. Having the Sandaime as his role model led Naruto to believe in quality over quantity. By now he had mastered 1D rank, the Suiten, Mizu Bunshin no Jutsu, water style, water clone technique, and was still working on AC rank, the Suiten, Teppadama no Jutsu, water style, liquid bullets. Naruto learned something else the academy didn't cover. First, chakra seemed to get accustomed to a certain manipulation. After having used the Kage Bunshins for a few months already and now learning the Mizu Bunshin, he was able to create a Mizu Bunshin with only one hand sign instead of two, after mastering the jutsu. Second, even though he didn't know it then, it had made sense that the higher rank the jutsu was, the more hand seals were needed. Looking through many jutsu scrolls this month, he had noticed a pattern. D rank, 1 to 2 hand seals. C rank, 3 to 9 hand seals. B rank, 10 to 15 hand seals. A- rank, 16 to 24 hand seals. S rank, 25 plus hand seals. Of course, there were inconsistencies, such as his father's ninpu, Rasengan ninja art, spiraling sphere, which needed no hand seals at all. Another example were the elemental dragon bullet techniques. All of them required 44 hand seals, simply because there was a lot of shape manipulation involved, which was difficult to do without the help of hand seals to direct the chakra. Aside from the elemental jutsu, he had mastered 3 others. His favorite and the gift from Itachi, the ninpu, Shunshin no Jutsu, ninja art, body flicker technique, the ninpu, Kage Kunai no Jutsu, ninja art, shadow kunai technique, and its counterpart, the ninpu, Kage Shuriken no Jutsu, ninja art, shadow shuriken technique, all 3 being D-rank jutsu, although it was slightly misleading. The Shunshin, while simple in a standard application, required quite good chakra control and was very difficult to use in combat situations. Both Kage Kunai and Kage Shuriken had a similar issue. Creating only one copy with the jutsu was very simple. However, to make it effective in battle larger numbers were required, and as such the chakra requirement was very high. A few days ago he had started out with level 3 of Fuinjutsu. Right from the bat, he noticed that from now on his progress would be even slower. The stuff was becoming quite complex. He was happy, however, that he could make his own standard grade explosive tags by now. It saved him quite some money, having a Kage Bunshin writing up tags through the evenings. He hadn't started inventing his own seals yet, apart from the reversed gravity seal, and even that was devised from another seal. Naruto was quite certain that invention would only start at level 6 and above, since there could go so much wrong when messing around with Fuinjutsu. All in all, he was quite capable for an almost fresh genin and could hold his own pretty well. This led to Naruto sitting happily on a stool at Ichiraku's slurping some ramen. He indulged himself today, since his first C rank was coming up, and with it, his first foray outside the village walls. It was a simple document delivery to the land of iron, and the chance for trouble was quite small. While there were many bandits on the way to Iron Country, they rarely attacked ninja. Naruto was assigned to a genin team that had already worked together for a little over a year. He was filling the spot of a currently injured genin. He actually knew one of the 2 remaining genin, Hana Inuzuka. She was the sister of one of his former classmates, Kiba Inuzuka, and the same age as Itachi. Unknown to Naruto, Hana was promoted to Chunin in the exams held in Kumogakure no Sato 2 weeks ago. Konoha had sent only one team to Kumo, since relations were still a little frosty over the kidnapping incident 5 years ago. The exams were also the cause for the now injured genin lying in the hospital. He had been defeated in the final round. However, Since their team worked well together and they all got along, it was decided to keep the team in its current state and only switch a genin in for the next Chunin exams, should the other two want to participate again. The only other noteworthy thing was the slight upswing in Naruto's social life. He had gone out to one of the barbecue restaurants with Choji and Shikamaru a few times. Once, even Shino and Kiba accompanied them. The Uchihas kept to themselves, of course, and so did their fan club. Choji and Shikamaru were turning from mere acquaintances to friends, and Naruto was rather happy about it. The two were very surprised when Naruto met up with them one evening after the academy had finished. They had thought that he dropped out and not graduated early. Shows how little he had actually talked with the two of them before his graduation. It was also then that he learned that early graduation was not possible anymore and the remaining students had to sit through all 5 years in the academy. XXX. 13. November 1298. Over the following 2 months Naruto had completed 6 more C ranks, 4 of them with Hana's team. He got along with both Hana's teammate and the ninja of other teams he went on missions with. To Naruto's astonishment, the other ninja were quite friendly to him, even if he had to live through a few jibes and taunts about his age and being a rookie. He put it down to them not knowing about his burden, because they were too young. Naruto even had a few decent spars with Hana and got to know her a little better. Apparently, she was planning to become a veterinarian, which was the reason for her to stay on her genin team. Her goal was to pick up some medical ninjutsu on the way and then join the reserve corps, while taking care of the many ninkin the Inuzuka clan owned. Since Naruto usually did the D ranks all on his own, his payment was quite decent, and after looking into his savings, he decided to cut down to only 1 mission per day, so he could spend more time training. One of his personal highlights was his own birthday. He had never celebrated during the Kyubi festival, for multiple reasons. This year, however, Shikamaru, Choji and Kiba came by his apartment. Choji's mother had even made a cake for him and they all brought presents. Another nice thing was being invited to Shikamaru's birthday party. It wasn't anything special, a simple dinner at their usual barbecue place. There were a few more people, for example Ino Yamanaka. Naruto learned that the Akamichi, Nara and Yamanaka clan heads were quite close, after having been on a team together for a long time and becoming famous as the Ino Shika Cho trio. Of course, Naruto also met with his Ji-san from time to time. Whether it was to discuss his training or going to Ichiraku's for some ramen. Concerning shinobi matters, the 6 C ranks he had participated in until now were all rather boring. While he liked the change of scenery and getting to know other ninjas, not once did he have to actually fight. Naruto wasn't certain what to think of it. On one hand, he wanted to prove himself, but on the other, he was a little apprehensive about his first kill. He of course knew that being a ninja involved killing others, being an Anbu agent even more so, but he didn't have to like it. At least he now knew that he could keep up with other genin and chunin in terms of stamina. Even more important, due to the contact with other ninja, he learned quite a lot about Konoha's ninja corps. The most crucial information being that the new and upcoming taijutsu specialist, Maeda Guy, had a big rivalry going with the famous elite Jonin Kakashi Hatake. He also learned that the so-called green beast of Konoha was a little dense in certain aspects. Naruto didn't like manipulating people, even less so if they were comrades. In this case, however, he made an exception. He needed help after all. Thus, we find Naruto currently sitting on a roof outside a shinobi bar, frequented by various jonin, including Maeda Guy. He was waiting for his target to appear, while his thoughts drifted back to his training. After having mastered both the Suiten, Teppadama no Jutsu, water style, liquid bullets technique, and the Suiten, Mizoripa no Jutsu, water style, trumpet technique, he didn't find any other C-rank water jutsu he wanted to learn. He thought the Suiten, Suiro no Jutsu, water style, water prison technique, sounded interesting, but as long as he was so small compared to potential enemies and relied heavily on his speed, a jutsu that forced him to stay still wasn't the brightest idea. Therefore, he concentrated more on water manipulation and fuinjutsu. Both came along quite well. Naruto was certain he would get the nature manipulation down soon, being already able to dampen parts of the leaf. As he suspected, fuinjutsu became a lot more complex since reaching level 3, and without help, his progress was rather slow. It was nothing that killed his mood, however, as he was certain that soon enough, he would find someone to help him. His foremost priority was finding a taijutsu sensei, and so his mind went back to his impending mission. Right as Naruto turned his focus back on the building, a ninja clad in green spandex and orange leg warmers exited through the door. After waiting another moment to make certain that he was the only one leaving, Naruto jumped off the roof and walked towards the Jonin. "Nay, Maida-san," Naruto exclaimed. The spandex-wearing ninja turned around and looked towards Naruto. "Ah, you must be Naruto-kun, the latest early graduate. What can I help you with?" "Well, I heard that you know Hatake-san quite well." "Of course, I know Kakashi, we're eternal rivals," Guy exclaimed, sporting a good guy pose. Being nearly blinded by the flashing teeth, Naruto squinted his eyes a little. "Well, you see, I heard that Hatake-san is the best to ask about taijutsu in Konoha, and since I'm in the reserve pool, I need a sensei. I thought about asking him, but before I do that, I wanted a second opinion." "My rival the best in taijutsu?" Guy gasped. "That is most untrue, my youthful friend, and I will prove it. You are most welcome to join me for my light morning workout. Meet me at 5 a.m. in Training Ground 6, if you're interested." Naruto's sweat dropped a little. That was easier than stealing sweets from a baby, Naruto thought. "I will think about it, Maida-san, thank you for the opportunity." "Nonsense. It is Guy-sensei now, Naruto-kun." "Hi, Guy-sensei. XXX. 5 minutes later, Hokage Tower. "He actually tried to manipulate you, using your rivalry with Kakashi-kun," Hiruzen asked, his left eyebrow shooting upwards. "Hi, Hokage-sama. It was most unyouthful from Naruto-kun. However, considering that we're ninjas, it was almost youthful again. I'm quite conflicted about it, to be honest." "I see. I'm happy that you accepted him. I'm certain there's a lot you can teach him." "Hi Hokage-sama, I'll do my best." Ninja. A How-To, Chapter 2, Mind and Body. There are many things to be said about training when it comes to ninja, but most importantly, it never ends. No jutsu is perfect, no ninja is perfect. Live by those words and you shall overcome your enemies and sometimes even yourself. While all shinobi and kunoichi are aware of the fact that they are required to train their body, many forget the importance of their mind. Jutsu, strength and speed won't always win you a battle. More often than not, it's the quick thinker that comes out on top. However, there is more to the mental discipline than strategy and planning. Mental fortitude is just as important. To withstand killer intent or the taunts of an opponent in order to stay calm and concentrated on your goal is critical for a ninja. Further, there is the danger of trauma. Sooner or later, any ninja witnesses things that are difficult to accept. To be able to work through issues and keep your mind healthy is paramount for ninja. It may even come to the point that a ninja is forced to do something he or she may regret for the rest of their lives, for the good of the village. Shinobi and kunoichi kill, steal and sabotage for the good of their village, and not every human is capable to do such things and simply carry on. We must be prepared for the ill we do in order for our village to thrive. When it comes to the body of a ninja, sooner or later a decision has to be made, how a body shall develop. There are obviously limits and predetermined factors set by Mother Nature to be accounted for. Not every type of body is capable of great speed or great strength. Women are generally considered weaker as they cannot achieve the same muscle growth as men. It is idiotic to believe that kunoichi are actually weaker, however. Agility is an often overlooked factor when it comes to physical prowess, and it is an area where women are naturally better. Further, the use of chakra can level the playing field considerably. When one talks about speed, there is often misunderstanding. First of all, to be able to move fast, the body must reach an incredible balance in muscle mass. You want to be as light as possible but have as much muscle as possible to move your weight. It takes a lot of dedication to achieve such a feat. It is often easier to go with a pseudo speed increase. Instead of moving fast, you move sooner. Reaction timing is often more important than speed. Most battles are fought within close quarters and the actual movements are short, as such speed doesn't come into play as we are led to believe. Instead, being able to react a fraction faster than your opponent is often the bigger advantage. There is some agreement when it comes to the actual training of the body. It is my opinion that endurance trumps all else in the beginning stages of a ninja career. No matter where your path leads you, having high endurance will always be helpful and it sets a good grounding for further improvement.